Good day, everybody. I hope your Friday has been amazing and awesome. Mine has. I went over to the church for a little while, not too long. Got started on something, pinned something down, got something else started, the ball rolling. I will be going back tomorrow afternoon after I finish with the library to finish my room, basically. I don't have that much left, so hopefully I have enough of what I did, of the vines that I cut that I told you guys about yesterday. Hopefully I have enough of those to go around. Considering what I cut was actually twice as long as I was supposed to, I can actually get twice as many out of it as I thought I would. The way I did it in my head, I didn't do it right. So I should be able to get a lot more out of it than I was thinking, because a lot of them I'm going to cut even more and make them even shorter up in the front of the room where we have our story time. And it was a matter of pinning down some sleeping bags, which we have access to some. I was going to sneeze there. That almost worked. Then I had to take my mom from the church down to the car place, garage, whatever. They were working on the van because we'd taken it to another car place, and they did a really bad job and screwed things up in the van. Like the steering wasn't aligned, and there was a problem with the tire that they didn't see. So we took it to this place. This is the place I've always taken my car. And they fixed all the problems that were there, but, and I don't know if this was something they missed or something that developed right then, the windshield wiper stopped working. And it started raining, and my mom was driving, so she had to stop because she couldn't see anything. So she had to just pull over and wait the rain out, and it was raining really hard. And so she was waiting in one spot for an hour, she said. And she had just picked up food for herself and for Josh and Heather, who were at the church, cleaning and setting up for VBS next week. And they're still there. So they're diligently working on this, I guess you could say. I, however, after dropping my mom off, so they're probably going to take the van in again. I don't know where they'll go. If they'll go to the one place or the other place, because in some people's mind, maybe both places screwed it up and they should go to a third place. Who knows for sure? Really, it was just a wiper problem that probably developed right then. Probably wasn't anyone's fault. Anyway, I went to Chipotle. I can't keep looking at this camera instead of the image of myself. So I went to Chipotle because I was invited to a job fair that was happening there. It's the one right over here where near where I live. I've been to it twice to eat before. One, meeting my friend who was going to talk to me about getting a job at the credit union and trying to give me advice to do well on the interview, which obviously didn't work out. And the other time, just last week with our dad. Me and Josh went there with our dad just last week. And then so I went over there, and they weren't doing individual interviews like normally happens at the job fairs. Like back when I was working at Taco Bell, they'd have the job fairs, and they'd have people from several stores all there. And they basically do on-the-spot interviews, and if they liked the people, they would they would hire them on the spot. So that's what I was kind of expecting. I knew it wouldn't necessarily be exactly the same as that, but turns out it wasn't. It was group interviews. So they sent out invitations, they said, to 600 people. Only 30 people showed up. And so they broke us into groups of 5 and went out and talked to all of us in groups. Got to know who we are, what our background was a little bit. Left our resumes with them and stuff. And then they told us a little bit about Chipotle and what it is they go for. And they go through what the benefits are, things like that. And they said these are things that we might hear or be asked of us when we do face-to-face interviews. And that we would be hearing within the next 48 hours if we were going to be getting a call back to do an individual face-to-face interview. So I should know that within the next 48 hours, or less than 48 hours now, because it's been a little while since then. So I did that. That worked. It started raining, pouring like crazy. They were doing it outside, and we had to go inside because the lightning was, and the rain was blowing a little bit, and the rain wound up blowing a lot. And flooding and stuff happened, and crazy stuff like that. Alright, I've already talked for too long, but I have to add more to this because it's my fun stuff. So I was invited to a birthday party. Someone from the drive who I had only met a couple times. I had only met once when I was invited. I hadn't really interacted with her all that much, so I was surprised I was invited. But then I did interact with her a couple other times this week in particular before this happened, and I was surprised. But so I went to that. A lot of us went to that, and sure enough, we played. I played some pool. I played a game of categories, and then we started a game of Mafia. We played 2 games, one very basic game, and then a second more complex game. But not too complex, but it went a lot longer than expected. So, real quick, briefly, this shouldn't take too long, but I'm going to tell you about these games because they were good. Game number 1, basic rules. There was about 12 people playing, maybe 11 or 10. Not a whole lot. So we started with 3 regular Mafia, no special rules, 1 cop, and 1 nurse. First round, Mafia kills the cop. The cop didn't realize he was the cop, so we actually were about to go on with no cop, thinking that the cop wasn't in there when we thought it was. So the cop was killed in the first round. Turned out it didn't matter that he didn't wake up and investigate anyone because we wouldn't have heard what he had to say anyways. Voting came out, and it came out pretty quick and pretty clear in a couple of our minds. So one guy comes out as the nurse, and not necessarily a good strategy, but he was originally suspected, and so I believed him. Enough of us believed him for us not to lynch him in the first. And so, at that point forward, he was cleared in my mind. Anyways, I believed he was the nurse. Things he'd say were things that I was agreeing with, observations I was making. And so, normally I play a much quieter game, but a lot of the people in that room were new at the game. So, it wound up being me and him, who, incidentally enough, in another game, last time we played, when I was the gunsmith, he was the guy I was giving the gun to. And so, we played that. We got a Mafia. We were wrong about someone, but then the Mafia got him, and then we were wrong about someone else. And then, before we knew it, there were 4 Mafia, which was a little strong, we thought. So we got 1 Mafia, but there were still 3 left. And so we got down to 6 people, 3 Mafia, 3 Town, and Mafia won. We had, both me and the other guy had figured out who the Mafia was at that point. We were both in agreement without talking to each other. We talked after the game. We were both thinking this person, and this person. And we had 1 pegged, and we didn't have a chance to go after him. And the other 2, we were just thinking on that exact moment that was the case. Alright, so I know this might be dull for some of you, and you probably clicked away already if that's the case. If not, if you really don't care about Mafia and you've gotten this far, I won't blame you if you click away. This is the game that took place next. We went out, we got a lot more people. We started with 17 playing. We had a somewhat inexperienced, I guess, I'd never played with her as the moderator, but we had basically an inexperienced moderator. And he broke out what happened, and I wound up being the framer. I was the framer. Another new player was the Godfather. Another new player was the Silencer. And then an experienced player was our Yakuza. And so we go forward, and she's asking for everyone to identify themselves. So to get the Mafia up, Yakuza, who are you? Raise your hand. Consigliere, indicate yourself. If he didn't activate himself, but he was like motioning to us that he was the consigliere, and so we. Actually, now that I think about it, he could have been saying he was the cop. I don't know why, but it wouldn't make sense for him to say that during the Mafia, so that's why I went with him, but he was the consigliere. So he didn't activate himself. He wound up not activating himself the entire game before he was killed off, so it didn't matter. So what happened was, while we were indicating ourselves, our silencer made the mistake of making a noise and moving a lot when he raised his hand. And the guy sitting next to him was our very experienced, normally our host in most of the Mafia things. And he heard him, and we knew we heard him because we saw him make all that motion. He's a new player. He didn't necessarily know any better. And so we're like, we gotta kill him. And so so Mafia, who do you want to kill? We point at him, and she goes, no, you can't kill him. And we're just like, what is going on? We have to go with what the moderator says. We can't make any noise or we give ourselves away. So we're like, alright. So we point to someone else, and she's like, nope, not her either. So we point to someone else, she's like, nope, you can't vote for him. So we pick our fourth choice. Our fourth choice winds up being a cop. And so it worked out, kind of. So we had to silence the guy who heard him. So the guy that made the noise was the silencer, ironically. And so we had to make sure, he's a new player, make sure he silenced the guy right next to him because he heard something. And then somehow it slipped our mind in the second round, or something else came up and we killed someone else for whatever reason we did. And we didn't kill the guy that was sitting next to our silencer, and so he couldn't be silenced again, so he was given a chance to sit up, speak up, and he ratted out the silencer that made the noise. And so he was knocked out of the game pretty quick. So gameplay went around. Our cop came out. For some reason, they actually investigated our Yakuza in the first round. But for some reason, they didn't rat him out. They didn't rat her out. Instead, he cleared somebody. He said that he cleared this person, but in reality, this person was the other cop. And so rather than rat out a Mafia, he essentially guaranteed the safety of another cop. Later on, a round or two later, I was watching reactions and stuff, and I just got this weird feeling that this guy was a cop. And so I convinced Mafia to kill him off. We killed him off. Turns out he was a cop. We got lucky there. So next thing that happened was I was suddenly put on the chopping block by the town because the cop, and the only remaining cop, because we got a first cop on the lucky first guess, we got a second cop because I thought he was the cop and we got rid of him. It turned out he was, so my instincts were right there. So there's only one cop left, and he's the one that came out at the beginning. And so the nurse has been saving him to the best of our knowledge. And so he comes and he says that they investigated me. And really, if there had been any other cops, they wouldn't necessarily have investigated me, just because most players tend to overlook me. But this is one guy who I just made that connection with in the previous game. He was the cop. He was the nurse in the last game. He was the guy I gave the guns to in the last time we played last week. So I'm on his radar, obviously. And so he investigates me, finds out I am guilty, and so starts going after me. The guy who had basically been cleared in everyone's minds because he ratted out our silencer, and also a very strong player in this game, was in agreement with the cop that they should go after me. And so I was going to defend myself, saying I was framed, because that's really the only defense I can give, because I am in fact the Mafia. I'm the framer. If I'd known it was coming, maybe I would have framed myself just so I could be honest and say, I was framed. And that may have been, I don't know, may have been just the way I presented it, I guess, wasn't good enough. So I was trying to fight it and say I was framed, but our Yakuza stepped up and said maybe he was framed, coming to my defense, drawing suspicion on herself, and then they decide, we think she might be Mafia. And so they decided to continue going after me. I realized they're thinking about going after her, and so I give up my defense, and I just let them kill me. Because I know that they're going to go after a Yakuza next round, they're going to investigate her, they're going to find out she's guilty, again, disproving any chance that she was framed in the first time. Maybe not. But she needed to get to the night so she could Yakuza suicide and turn someone else Mafia. So I had to sacrifice myself so she could do that. And then the two strongest members of the Mafia, the two most experienced, were both out of the game like that. And so we had a brand new Mafia person, fairly new at the game, who was actually the host of this party, just turned. We had a brand new player who was our godfather who was playing really erratically, and we had a consigliere who wound up never activating himself. So after I was killed, the cop tells the nurse to not save him for whatever reason. He had a reason for it. The nurse heard him. I heard him. But our Yakuza and Godfather sitting right next to me did not hear this. I'm dead, so I can't say anything to them about it. I'm hoping they're smart enough not to that she's smart enough not to turn him, because she's the Yakuza. So this happened before we activated the other person. I'm hoping she's smart enough not to turn him, because that would be the obvious choice, and they might go right after him. And I'm hoping she heard him say, "Nurse, don't save me," and that they'll actually kill him. They didn't. So they killed the random person. Turned out that person was Batman, who never struck. So it was an inconsequential player, but he still had a strike coming, so he would have been a little more dangerous down the line if he made his move. Wow, that's a 16-minute vlog. Sorry I'm taking so long to explain this, but I gotta tell you guys about it. So so they killed Batman. Mafia killed Batman. The nurse thought about it for a while, decided to listen to the cop and save himself. The nurse saved the nurse. Which means the cop was vulnerable and the Mafia could have gone after him if they'd heard it. If I hadn't sacrificed myself, if I was able to convince them to go after our Yakuza, we wouldn't have been able to turn anyone that night, but I would have been able to eliminate, execute, kill as a Mafia. I could have killed the cop, because I would have heard and I would have known what was happening. So instead, I died. She died as well, turning someone else. And so then, in the next round, something crazy that's not supposed to happen happens. And the way it works is the town has to have an accusation and a second, and then they vote, no matter what. And so an accusation and a second on the nurse. He comes out and says he's the nurse. Everyone believes him, and so they don't ever have the vote. But they should have. Then they start going after our godfather, and they're totally going to go for him, but for whatever reason, they just changed their mind. Even though there was an accusation in the second, they should have voted for him. If they'd voted, they probably would have eliminated him, which would have given our consigliere a chance to maybe be cleared and then activate himself right after he's cleared. So they don't vote like they're supposed to, and they change their mind and go after the consigliere, the unactivated consigliere, and they vote and eliminate him. The next round, they eliminate our godfather, and the next round, the cops investigate our Mafia that was turned by the Yakuza, find out it's her, eliminate her, game over, town wins. It was academic at that point, but there were quite a few mistakes that were made by the moderator and by the town that could have made it so the Mafia, we could have pulled it off, but instead we didn't. So I was winless in this game. One as a town, Mafia won, and then one as Mafia and town won. Couldn't pull it off tonight. But it's still a lot of fun, as always, and I gotta make sure I close this out, because it's 18 and a half minutes, and I only talked about 2 Mafia games in the rest of my day. So, a lot of things happened today, like I said. I gotta get to bed because I have to volunteer at the library tomorrow, and then set up my room, and then I'm going to a housewarming party for a friend who recently moved as well. So, I'm going to end it here. Good night, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.